My name's Sarah Cooper. I'm the Community Engagement Officer for Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels in the southeast, and I thought I'd go on a walk today and try and spot some squirrels and perhaps have a chat about some squirrel facts along the way. Let's go for a walk in the woods and see if we can spot any squirrels. So when you go walking in your local woods, it's a good idea to just keep your eyes peeled for any small signs of squirrels, any small movements. Just over here to my left, we've got a brilliant big beech tree. Squirrels really like eating beech mast, so you can have a look around on the ground and you'll see something that looks a little bit like this. So this is beech mast. How many species of squirrel are there in the UK? The answer is 2. Our native red squirrel, and the other species is a non-native invasive squirrel called the grey squirrel. And the reason why the grey squirrel is non-native is because it was brought into the UK in the late 1800s from North America. So it didn't actually originate in the UK. And it's invasive because it has a negative impact on another species in the UK, namely the red squirrel. And in a lot of areas in the UK, it is outcompeting and replacing, and in most cases has already replaced, the red squirrel. And that's why Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels was set up to try and help conserve red squirrels, because it would be awful to lose them as a species from the UK. How do you tell apart a red squirrel from a grey squirrel? The main differences are usually in the colour, but you can get different colour variations. The best way to tell them apart is you'll see that the grey squirrel in the bottom picture here has got tri-banded tail hairs, or tail hairs with 3 different colours. They're all tipped with white, which is what gives the tail this sort of white halo. You can see in the red squirrel picture, its tail does not have that white halo. Another key feature of red squirrels is in the winter time and in the springtime they will have these lovely big ear tufts, which grey squirrels will never have. Grey squirrels are also usually quite a lot larger than red squirrels. Grey squirrels will be about 800 grams, whereas the reds will only be about 300. So they're a lot smaller than their grey cousins. What does a red squirrel eat? Red squirrels will eat things like acorns and pine cones, but what you might not know is they eat all sorts of other foods as well. They'll eat buds from trees in the springtime. They'll eat fruits like brambles. They'll eat invertebrates, so that's bugs and little beasties in the summer months. And they'll also have mushrooms. If they find mushrooms, they'll pick them, gather them up. They'll leave them out somewhere to dry, and once they've dried out, they'll store them all in a little larder to eat later. They'll also very occasionally take a bird's egg, but not very often. How can you tell who's chewed a cone? That's a question that I'm asked from time to time. You can't tell if a red squirrel or a grey squirrel has chewed the cone, but you can see if it was a squirrel or something else entirely. This cone on the right has been very messily chewed. You can see all the raggedy ends. This has been chewed by a squirrel. In comparison, if we move over to this cone, you can see it's been very neatly clipped, eaten very neatly. So this was eaten by a mouse. So that's the difference between how squirrels eat cones and how other animals like mice eat cones. Here is a great big patch of brambles, The fruit on them isn't ripe just yet because we're still heading into late summer, but this will be a great food source for squirrels. How long do squirrels live? Can you have a guess? So on average, squirrels will live about 3 years in the wild, with a maximum of about 5 to 6 years for their lifespan. Fungi is one of those foods that squirrels like to eat, so have a look at dead wood or some old tree stumps and you might just find some. Top tip for spotting signs of squirrel feeding is that they do often like to eat on top of mossy tree stumps, so they're a good place to look to see for any chewed cones or remains of other food like hazelnuts split in half or acorns. The best habitat for a red squirrel is a mix of different ages of trees and a good mix of broadleaf trees and coniferous trees. So you can tell that this tree here is a broadleaf because it has flat, soft leaves. This one is actually a beech, and then right next to it, this is a conifer. And you can tell it's a conifer because this has long slender needles. So it has needles rather than the big flat leaves. What is a squirrel's home called? Any ideas? A squirrel's home is called a drey. That's spelled D-R-E-Y. Here's a picture of one. So you can see that it's essentially a ball of twigs, normally 30 centimetres in diameter, and it's usually found quite high up in the trees, nestled between the tree trunk and a branch. So in that corner where the branch meets the trunk. And it's lined with lichen and mosses, and usually squirrels will have around 4 or 5 of these drays, and instead of changing their bedding for some fresh new bedding, what they'll do is if they start to get too many parasites in their dray, they'll move from dray number 1 to dray number 2, and they'll keep moving around their set of 4 or 5 drays until eventually the parasites are gone. This is an oak tree which produces acorns, one of the foods that squirrels will eat, and you can tell it's an oak tree because you can see it's got really deeply fissured bark, and also you can see from this leaf shed on the ground it's a very stereotypical oak leaf shape. And if you look at their twigs as well, they're a bit too high up on this tree, but they do actually have clusters of buds together at the end of the twig, a little bit high up to see. But that's an oak. As we keep walking on, I wanted to have a bit of a chat about the threats that red squirrels face. So of course you've probably heard that grey squirrels are a big threat to red squirrels, but also they face threats from loss of habitat. There's a lot less habitat for red squirrels now. Habitat fragmentation, also deaths on the road is another big threat. They get run over by cars quite a bit. And also domestic predators. So they are part of the food chain. So they're eaten by things like further north wildcats, but they're also eaten by things like goshawks and pine martens. And that's okay because that's part of the natural order of things. That's part of the food chain. But they are also under threat from our pets, such as cats and dogs. So in the springtime, do keep an eye on your cat or dog in the garden. Just keep a lookout for any young kits, young red squirrels, because they're particularly at risk from pets. And I've just seen right at the top there a little bit of movement in the trees. So I don't know if you can see right at the top there, I have spotted a squirrel. So in these woodlands, we only really get grey squirrels, unfortunately. Can be quite hard to see in the canopy. And the reason that we only get grey squirrels here is because unfortunately they have pushed out red squirrels from the area a while ago. But we're hopeful with the work that Saving Scotland's red squirrels do, and into the future hopefully we can get some red squirrels back in woodlands that have been taken over by the invasive grey squirrels. But it just goes to show, if you keep your eyes open and keep looking around the tree canopy, listening for movement, you might eventually spot a squirrel. One of the biggest threats that red squirrels face due to the grey squirrel is a disease called squirrel pox. So this doesn't affect grey squirrels at all, although they do carry it, but it has a 95% fatality rate in red squirrels. So symptoms of this to look out for in red squirrels are lesions around the eyes and paws, and they might have difficulty climbing or moving or eating. If you see a red squirrel with these symptoms, please do get in touch with us as soon as you can. If it's in the southeast, you can contact S. Cooper at scottishwildlifetrust.org.uk, or for any region you can get in touch with us at squirrels at scottishwildlifetrust.org.uk. If you stay in the borders and you want to find out a bit more about what's going on in your local area in the southeast, here are the contact details for myself, Sarah Cooper, Community Engagement Officer for this area. Please note that at the moment we're not using this phone number as most of our staff are working from home.